Something I find absolutely bizarre is with anxiety, or I guess lots of other mental health disorders, from ADHD to depression, is how quickly doctors dish out medication and how therapists, coaches, mental health professionals sometimes don't look at the bigger picture. Now, this isn't knocking anyone who does those professions. They all do an incredible job. But I often think there's something missing when it comes to the holistic way of looking at what's going on with the person. For example, I had an anxiety disorder, and it came around for various reasons. I was bullied, I struggled at home, and when I went to the GP, there were no questions at all about, well, what's going on with you. It was more about, what are you thinking? Are you having these types of thoughts, which are quite negative and dark? And if you are, then we'll give you medication. And I was too frightened to take that medication at the time because I didn't understand it. And my gut instinct said, this isn't the right path. At no point did my GP or therapist, or even when I trained in counselling, did anyone say, what's your lifestyle like? Because besides having had a difficult childhood, I wasn't looking after myself. I really wasn't. I was highly caffeinated. I was not interested in having a sleep routine. That wasn't even a thing in my 20s. It was go to bed whenever you want, probably when you're tired. And as a teen and in my 20s, you obviously go to bed a lot later, if at all. And so I would really mess around with my sleep routine. My food intake was probably a bit interesting, as a lot of it was highly processed junk food. I wanted the sugar, I wanted the fat, I wanted the salt. No one really said, this is going to impact your mental and physical health. It was, I'm just going to eat what I want to eat. And all of these things combined, another thing that no one even asked me about was, what's your career like? What are you living with purpose or anything like that? And what are your relationships like? It was all, what are you thinking? And without that bigger picture, look at my life, I over-focused myself on what I was thinking, because that was kind of the trope that I was kind of wheeled out, that this is what you're supposed to do. You're meant to just analyze what you're thinking and change your thoughts. So I would be aware that I thought negatively, of course, and I would do my best to try and change those thoughts. I thought that would solve my anxiety issues. It was my fault. I was thinking these things. I should think more positively. And that didn't work very well. You try not to think a negative thought, and you're going to have more negative thoughts. Anyway, I did my best. And it got to the point where I finally did find an answer myself, but I felt like an absolute failure. Absolute failure. Like there was something wrong with me. And people were looking at me as if there was something wrong with me. I had social anxiety, and I would often be in a crowd of people, because I think deep, in my heart, I'm a sociable person. I like being around people. But from being bullied, I guess that created a program of, I'm not safe or I'm not wanted in groups of people, and that would begin to pop up. and I would literally just disappear. It'd get to the point where I just had to leave. And people thought that was a bit strange, of course. You know, one minute I was there, next minute I'm not. So this combination of anxiety really accumulated to a point where I was tired, really tired of fighting with my thoughts on a day-to-day basis. I had started it's not the right word, having panic attacks on a regular basis too. And I remember my first panic attack, my mum thought I was having an asthma attack, so handed me an inhaler because she nor I knew exactly what to do. You know, that's the one thing about anxiety and panic attacks is the absolute powerlessness you can feel in that moment. It can feel like you're going to die. It really can feel like you're going to die. And it's so confusing because it just comes out of nowhere. There was no build up. It just happened. And all of this was just getting to the point where this over focus on my mind, I was blaming myself for not thinking the way that I should be thinking, more confidently, more positively. I was desperate to do that. And it accumulated to me one day sitting in the bathroom, wondering if I could just carry on at all. I'd had enough. And I then had this very strange experience, which I now know what it is, but back then had all sorts of wild theories as to what had happened. But whilst I was crying and thinking about this non-existent future of mine, which seemed to contain nothing but anxiety, I was never going to be free of it. I was never going to get rid of it. I was always going to be terrorized by it. Then suddenly out of nowhere, I felt this like heat in my body, like something was moving. And suddenly out of nowhere, through every fiber of my being, I could feel and hear this voice. And this voice literally said, and I don't think I can remember the exact words because it's a really strange thing of receiving a message, but not exactly hearing the words. I don't think that makes sense, but bear with me. But the message was, you've got anxiety all wrong. You've got anxiety all wrong. You need to come out of here and you need to come into here. I mean, that's pretty much it. And then it was gone. So I'm kind of left bewildered, wondering what on earth had just happened. And just thinking about, because I was deeply in my spiritual phase back then. I probably thought it was like a spirit guide or God or something on a similar nature. And it gave me hope. It gave me hope in that moment that whilst I didn't know the answer, I would find the answer. Later on, by the way, I do know what that voice was. I did find out. And I'll tell you now, it's not like I'm going to save it for later or anything, but I do believe, and it's quite well documented, that we hold a lot of wisdom, like our true self, our consciousness, spirit, soul, whatever you want to call it. And at times of crisis, this voice, this self, this version of us can appear and we can hear it. And it can give us insights. And it's not always at times of crisis, by the way. You might be in the shower, out for a walk, just sat there stroking your pet. And you suddenly get this knowing, this information that comes out of nowhere. that helps you with something. And that's what I experienced. I experienced my true self, I believe, um, helping me with a almost like a torch shining at a path and saying, this is where you could go. So I had no idea what it meant, by the way. But if it said body, then maybe I need to look into the physiology of anxiety and go from there. But it's pretty shocking because it wasn't very long before I discovered something that no one had mentioned at all. And that was that I was breathing wrongly. Now, it's not like I went to breath and breathing classes at school, missed out on breath 101. I was a shallow mouth breather. I had crooked teeth to prove that. That's what they said in the book. There's something to do with a link between the way that we breathe and the way that our jaw and teeth are. Thank God for having a brace. But it was something that I thought, wow, how am I breathing wrongly? What difference did that make? And then it became clear that when you breathe in, you stimulate what's known as your sympathetic nervous system, which, if that's overstimulated, you are heightened, you're energized. When we breathe in, we feel a bit more energized. When we breathe out, we feel more relaxed. So there's this seesawing effect between your sympathetic and your parasympathetic. And I was very shallow with my breath. No wonder I had asthma as a child. And no wonder I was sort of on that heightened state. I think looking back, I was quite a high functioning anxiety person who was always alert, always looking at what possible dangers would come my way. I would read people very quickly, class myself as empathic, which literally was me doing, reading as many people as possible to get a sense of, was I safe? And I became very good at reading people. So, but discovering I was breathing wrongly, and that by changing the way I just simply breathe, by extending that exhale, becoming more mindful of the breath, my anxiety changed a bit. And I was like, what? This is different. I mean, it was just one breath at a time. I wasn't into meditating back then. I know I teach that now, but I found meditating so hard back then. It's called the default mode network in the brain, the wandering brain. I heard someone the other day say, oh, I think I'm a little bit ADHD. And it was, well, what they're describing is the default mode network is overactive because it just can't focus. And my brain was very active, and trying to meditate was what felt like near impossible. I think that's a subject for another day, but just practicing regular breath work made a big difference to me. I started to feel not hugely, but enough for me to continue. And then I discovered a little bit more about physiology and how important sleep was, for example. And there was me at sometimes, going out as a young man and enjoying myself and not coming back, be up all night, and then getting to sleep in the day, or sometimes going straight to work from being up. Can't imagine that now, but that's what I did. So my poor nervous system was under so much pressure from not sleeping properly, really putting it under pressure from lack of sleep. I was exhausted most of the time, and I was using caffeine throughout the day to manage and suppress my exhaustion, which then, of course, made sleep very difficult in the evening. And with a heightened nervous system as well, sleep is going to be very difficult. So I had insomnia. That wasn't fun. But by beginning to do breathwork, take my sleep a bit more seriously, I did drag my heels on that one, to be fair, as with caffeine. It was something I really didn't want to let go of. Maybe that was a self-sabotaging part back then, because there is a part of us that doesn't really know what being free of anxiety would be like. Being free of anxiety felt completely alien to me. And that brings me to when I first had my moment of being anxiety free for just a few seconds. It was so alien, so strange to experience, from the compound effect of beginning to change my life holistically, that I panicked from being so peaceful. That might sound really odd, but it felt so alien. Didn't understand it at all. And I was so used to the illusion of control through feeling tense and tight and being overly vigilant with what was going on around me. I didn't feel safe being peaceful. And that's something that often isn't addressed with anxiety. But slowly I began to look at my diet, and I changed that, and more hydration. I looked at my relationships and how I was with myself and people around me. And this wasn't a quick fix, by the way. I didn't do this all within just a few months. It took me a long time to work out which areas of my life needed to be worked on. And again, I came up with a system which I give to clients, because I do coach people with anxiety, usually more entrepreneurial people now, people in business, with a coaching program. I provide resources for as many people as possible, because part of my purpose at one point in life was to help as many people with anxiety as possible just begin to become free of it. That's still a goal of mine, but other things going on, so that's quite nice. But mind, body, heart, and purpose. Remember that. Mind, body, heart, and purpose. These are 4 areas that if you took some time to invest in each day, and it can be really tiny things, I'm not looking at anything huge. Again, you are boosting essential neurochemistry and calming down your nervous system. So you're boosting dopamine and serotonin, oxytocin, endorphins, GABA, which is a neurotransmitter which slows down activity in your brain and nervous system. There's so much more. It gets quite expansive on what you're boosting just by investing in mind, body, heart, and purpose. But if you just remember that, just so that you could begin to think about, well, if you invested in your mind, just watching this video, by the way, is investing in your mind. You're learning maybe something new. Well, I hope you are. And so knowledge is a great way to invest in your mind, experiencing something new. These are little things. Reading a page of a book, meditating, doing a gratitude practice. These are all wonderful little things you can do to invest in your mind. Get a growth mindset and begin to change the way that you think. Because after all, your mind is the way that you see and experience the world around you through your belief systems. And by changing your beliefs and perceptions, you get to change your experience of yourself and reality. And you are more powerful than you could possibly even imagine. You really, really are. Though your mind may say otherwise. But the more you invest in your mind, the more you may begin to break free of your own limitations. So it's a really wonderful investment to make. And the next is body. So stretching, yoga, exercise, walking, food, hydration, sleep. Or you can class as investments in your body. And you can just do small little things, like an extra glass of water. You could do, I'm going to have a little bit more salad with my dinner tonight. I'm not going to have that pudding. I'll do something else instead, some fruit. All of this, by the way, when you take these small steps, can make you feel really good. When a client comes to see me, and we do a coaching session to see if they're going to respond to the work I do, the one thing that they normally all say is I felt better coming to see you and talk to you. Now, it's not like I did anything magical in that session. I mean, it's good work. I mean, I love coaching. I love diving into people's mindsets with them and finding out what's really going on in the bigger picture. But just the act of taking a step will make you feel good. And that's why investing in your mind and body, do it very simply, will make a big difference. Like a minute of breath work. I mean, who hasn't got a minute to do some breath work, which is also classed as meditation? So, hey, mind and body there together in 1 minute. Heart. What do I mean by heart? So heart is your connection with yourself and the people around you. Or do you have a tribe of people you exercise with or game with? How's your relationship with you? What do you think of you? It's very common to have a program, which I believe is an important program to have. I'll explain in a second. But there's a program of I'm not good enough. And if you recognize that program, nod your head. I had that, but with unlikable and unlovable as well. That was a bit weird. So we have these programs, and we often walk through the world seeking for evidence that what we believe about ourselves is true. And the world will provide it. It really, really will. And that causes suffering. Now, why do I believe that's a good thing? I know it's painful. I know that it can really impact your life on so many levels. And you have to be gentle with this and kind. But your mind creates thoughts and sounds and sensations in your body which are holding you back, which is a madness, really, isn't it? Think about it. You get an image in your head, you get a sound in your head and a feeling in your body, and it holds you back from experiencing the life that you truly want to live. It stops you living your best life. But yet it's all illusionary. It's just a thought, just a feeling. And it's not an indicator of reality. Here's an example. I'll get back to heart in a moment, but it is around, this is all based on I'm not good enough and how illusionary our minds are. Illusionary, is that the right word? Maybe. Let's go back to how feelings, for example, or thoughts are not a great indicator of reality. So as a child, I would swim to the deep end of the pool and then quickly get back out. And why? And I can imagine some of you probably know this already. Maybe you've done the same. In my child's head, I would hear that Jaws music and be convinced that somehow a shark was in the deep end of the pool. Somehow it swam through the pipes, got through the grates, and there it was in the pool. Because I couldn't see at the bottom, so my mind would convince me there was something terrible down at the bottom of the pool, just because I couldn't see the bottom of it. And I would get that feeling of terror and swim to the shallow end or go. And that's how crazy our minds are. Even if in Brighton, where I live, swimming, it's amazing how many people laugh at that story and go, yeah, I still get that in the sea. And they're adults. It's amazing what your mind comes up with. When it comes back to the heart, we have these stories that we're not good enough. And we have a terrible connection to ourselves because of the programming that we've had, maybe experiences. And it's so hypnotic that we can't help but believe what we're thinking. But we are powerful. And we can change that program. We can begin to love ourselves. We can connect to ourselves by beginning to recognize that what we believe about ourselves is illusionary. It's not reality. We've been tricked into believing something negative about ourselves to be true. And I believe it's our rite of passage to break free from those programs, to wake up to the truth of who we are. And that comes back to that consciousness, that awareness inside of us that we often can't hear because the mind, the ego, our identity, our beliefs are so loud that we don't get a sense of, at times, of our true nature. And to come back to our true nature is our ultimate purpose. To wake up out of this dream state reality that tricks us into anxiety, into suffering, into pain. To wake up out of that is our ultimate purpose. So we go through suffering, we go through pain, we believe our thoughts, we believe our feelings, we put ourselves into terrible situations in relationships, in career, all sorts of things. If you think about it, did you choose any of this? Did you choose your relationship? A lot of you would have, yes. Or did you just settle for it? Did you choose your career? Did you just settle for it? Did you choose where you really lived? Is this what you really wanted? Or have you just settled because this is what was on offer? This is what your mind limited you with. And I think that's a really good thing to begin to think about. Not to create a strong sense of dissatisfaction, but to become aware of how much of this life did I choose? And what could I begin to do about it if I'm no longer being held back by my mind? So invest in your mind, invest in your body, invest in your heart, and invest in looking, connecting to yourself, breaking through the illusions of your mind, to love and accept yourself. You're an amazing person. And you're probably thinking, he doesn't know me. But I know that you're another soul, another person. I know that you're struggling. I know that you've suffered. And you have happy moments and sad moments. You're experiencing the whole thing as a human. So I do believe, in a way, we all know each other. We're all kind of connected. And you are awesome. You are amazing. And sometimes you forget that. It's like a bad case of mistaken identity, where you believe what you've been told about you. You believe what other people have convinced you of. You believe your own story inside your mind. And this also has an effect on how you connect with other people around you, relationships, the people you bring into your life in regards to, romance and friendships and things, how you get on with your family. And you can have better boundaries. Your boundaries often determine how people treat you. And again, if you don't have boundaries, which is hard if you've got anxiety, because it's easier to not have boundaries in a way, because hey, that people-pleasing thing, you can't have boundaries with that, can you? Difficult to people please if there's a boundary there. So it's really important to begin to develop an important, loving, accepting relationship with yourself, to realize the truth about you, so that you can have a different relationship with the people around you. And a lovely little thing you can do. I love these YouTube videos, by the way, because I can just talk for as long as I like about things that you can do, and I hope you're finding this useful, is if you just put your hand on your heart, it's on my mic, but hand on your heart, and just say your name, like Paul, I love you. And if you get an icky feeling, then there's some work to do, because we're just not used to saying it. It feels really alien, saying your name and I love you. And if you just practice that, think about everything you've been through, all the challenges, all the things you've overcome, maybe who appreciates you, who relies on you, all the good things that you've done for other people and for yourself. It's not all been bad. And just get used to saying your name and I love you. Really connect. That helps release oxytocin, and you can begin to, over time, experience a different relationship with yourself. It's just very simple, very gentle, but it makes a big difference. And then the last thing that I wanted to quickly mention was purpose. So we have an outer purpose, like you might believe that's your calling. So I believed, for example, my outer purpose was to help as many people with anxiety as possible wake up out of anxiety and to live the life that they truly want to live. I mean, that sounds like a wonderful purpose, and I enjoy doing that. I really, really do. But we have an inner purpose. And our inner purpose isn't a calling or a career or, you know, hobby or anything that gives us a sense of contentment and joy and makes us feel connected. The inner purpose is to wake up out of that dream state, to recognize the truth of who you really are. And you'll have moments of that. If you look at your life, if you had those moments of just suddenly feeling peaceful and still, connected to everyone and everything, where you suddenly knew something and you didn't know how you knew it. And it can come with like these moments of synchronicity that can seem so fantastic. You try to explain it with logic in your head and you can't quite. And there's a whole psychology around it which tries to explain it, but I think we're still mystified by how these synchronicities begin to happen. I believe that it's to do with that we are connected to everyone and everything. And when we begin to look at life in a certain direction, so we have intentions, we would like to experience something, it's almost like the universe, the energy around us begins to do something with it, and it begins to bring it into our lives. I don't fully understand how it works, but recently I've experienced some incredible synchronicities that have changed everything for me in such a short space of time. I'll talk about that another time. But the reason for this video, I just wanted to have a chat, was because we've gone from the story of my anxiety all the way to now. But just to have an open and honest, I can't say conversation because you're not able to talk back unless you do something in the comments, but just be open with you about how, going to the GP, even therapy, our system to help people with anxiety and mental health disorders is so over-focused on the mind and just medication, when it's really clear that the holistic view is really important for all of us, really important. It reminds me of a client who was clearly going through some hormonal issues. And I mean, whilst I can help her with her symptoms to a degree, she had to see a GP. There was no amount of therapy was going to help her with her hormones. So, it's like I've had clients with really strong insomnia who are drinking Coca-Cola in the evening. Other brands available. But drinking highly caffeinated drinks in the evening, and it was impacting their sleep, and they just didn't know. So no amount of therapy would have helped that unless I found out from them what their lifestyle was like. So if you're experiencing anxiety, look at the bigger picture. So you can get a sense of, and deep inside, to be a part of you that says, maybe gaming and looking at your phone right up until bedtime might not be helpful for you anymore. And with honesty, begin to modify and tweak the habits you suspect are making a difference and adding too much pressure to your nervous system and pushing it into that survival mode. Do what you can to release that pressure. So invest in mind, body, heart, and purpose. And if you are experiencing anxiety in a very strong nature, I host a podcast called the Mindset Change Podcast. And on there, I've created anxiety healing meditations, and it's called, one of them is called a non-sleep deep rest type of meditation. So you're just literally lying there listening to me, and I get you to work with your mind and body in a way which really begins to help you heal from the inside out. So have a look at those. They'll be on this channel. They're on YouTube as well, but you can also, if you want to listen via Spotify or Apple, you do you. And also, it'd be good to hear from you. Let me know what you think of them. But for those experiencing anxiety who are listening to this, there is hope. I believe anxiety is your path to freedom, because the suffering you go through will help you begin to break free. And when you break free from the illusions of your mind And everything that's holding you back, so any past trauma, anything holistic, with your lifestyle that needs changing, when you break free of all of that, then what's to hold you back from living the life that you truly want? If you're no longer being held back by your mind, what's to hold you back from building the life that you really want? Absolutely nothing. I think it's insane that a simple thought and feeling can stop you living your best life. So, if you like what I'm saying, keep listening to this channel. I'm going to be doing more conversations like these, just having a chat to help remind you of the truth of who you are. And not my truth, by the way, not who I think you are, but for you to find out, discover for yourself. That's so much more powerful than anyone else telling you. But for you to discover that and to live life from that more intuitive place from within you. And I'll tell you something now. There is no money in the world that could pay me to go back into that dream state where I'm not awake and living the life that I truly want. So I've gone from, anxiety in such a dark place to feeling like I am the wealthiest man in the world. Not because of a bank balance, but because I truly am present and happy. And anything that my mind says, well, it doesn't really do that anymore, but I remember what it used to say about the future. I'm just no longer attached to it. It's not valid. It's irrelevant drama. And if you get that to that place, with the past, you recognize the past and your thoughts is not useful anymore. All we have is now. This is the most important moment of your life. We can create with this fresh canvas, no longer dictated to by an illusionary past or illusionary future. Because right here, right now, you're free. You really are, but you might have forgotten. Anyway, enough of the chat. If you would like to hear more from me, then and us to have a conversation, we could do some lives or something like that. That'd be nice. But it'd be good to hear from you. So subscribe, do all the other stuff to make sure that channel is something that you don't forget. And I'll look forward to talking to you at some point soon. Have a good day.